at different speeds, with different blueprints, sometimes operating with different maps and different levels of cognitive abilities. But the end goal is still the same. How we get there, of course, is up to us, and of course, whether we choose to learn things the easy way or the hard way. So I look at Portland, Oregon, a city where I have a love-hate relationship, and I see the things that I don't want and the things that I don't want to be a part of. And of course, I see the beauty that also exists in the city, that community energy that exists within many, not all, but within some. That energy, that those synchronicities where I've met people that have felt drawn to move to Portland, Oregon. They don't know why, but they're here for some strange reason. So in the world of those that view this apocalyptic reality coming, and I certainly see the earth change has already taken effect, I don't see it as a end of the world scenario, just a major change. But how Portland's going to pan out, even with this knowledge about the potential for a great earthquake that could be well above 9, that can destroy our current infrastructure and cause the bridges to fall down, and some of the buildings, the old buildings downtown that are made out of brick that aren't meant to withstand earthquakes, they speculate that some of them will collapse in on themselves or fall over. Even with that potential, Portland still has a number of people that are already in their own way thinking along the lines of living outside the grid, but within the city, wild in the city, rewired in the city to a certain degree. And how that's going to play out in the future, I don't think it's going to come gradually. I think it's going to come with a bang. And of course, that's what makes 2012 so interesting in terms of the projections of the solar flare activity and solar maximum. And so I think it's very, very likely that a lot of people on a psychic, subconscious level know something's coming to the planet that's not at the end of the world scenario, but it's going to force us to become more sustainable and, of course, go back to the local level. And we're going to have to rebuild our own governments from the grassroots up. When you look at the local city, when you look at Adams, when you look at Salzman, when you see some of the other shenanigans going on, Randy Leonard and his history in the city, I mean, we have constant examples and stories of corruption despite the progressive front that Portland projects to a lot of the world. So for those of us that know about these things, we have to be aware of some of those things. We have to highlight those corporate interests that are coming in to, of course, make life less visible, less livable for us. We have Nestle and other corporations moving in to privatize water over off the Columbia Gorge and Cascade Locks, and we see things of that taking place while most people believe that this is the shit. Excuse my language, though. This is the epitome of what a completely self-sustaining city is. And the reality is most people truly know it's far larger than creating a bunch of bike lanes. And of course, in terms of the food distribution situation, although there's a lot of people that are starting to grow food, it's not quite at that level where a city could completely sustain itself without needing fossil fuels to truck things in and out. And so in this transition to some sort of a different world, we want to be looking positively at how, as things unravel more and more, there might be more and more people that think just like us, that are outside the matrix, that are willing to unplug themselves because we can't do it for them. And of course, develop those friendships with those that are starting to see the same spectrum of light, that we're choosing to tap into as things get worse and things unfold around us. So I could have spent hours and hours and hours preparing tons of headlines today, but instead I thought that some of those things are more important to talk about, to remind people that after 5 or 6 years of reading a lot of news, for me it becomes very clear what's going on here. That we're likely not the only ones here on planet Earth right now. There's a lot of debate about that, and that's fine. People can have their debates. And really, for me, I don't want to be involved in any fighting or convincing anyone of a certain belief system, but for me, there certainly is a reason why a new world order is in existence right now, really the old world order, but why there's so many disasters and manufactured events that are taking place, happening to the species at this time. And within this matrix of free will, we can choose to respond to this information a number of different ways. But if you look at it like a biological virtual video game, as I've referenced it before, kind of some sort of realm of existence where we're tested, it would make complete sense to me that souls would be reincarnated into an experience where a certain number of things are set to happen to them in their lifetimes. And of course, how we respond to those challenges are going to determine our own evolution, or whether we're going to stay in this realm of existence. Because if we have a consciousness that's so expansive where we can tap into so many different things, it leads us, of course, to another epiphany, that we're more than human, that we're more than these fleshly bodies. And while a lot of people choose to argue, I don't even want to be involved in those arguments over which religion is more correct or accurate than the other, or which more is in line with the version of reality that we ought to be looking at. For me, myself, I've always looked at the universe and the things going on from an independent perspective most of my life outside of religion. And probably that's one of the main reasons why I don't have some sort of a resentment to God that a lot of people seem to have, that were born up in an orthodox religious environment where a lot of things were forced down their throat, were forced into their consciousness. Otherwise, there might be some sort of punishment, either from the parents or, as they're told by their preacher, from that God. Again, depending on what religious system that they're in. And so freedom of choice, freedom of religion, freedom of thought, all of these things are very, very important to this conversation, because if we don't really believe in freedom of diversification of views, of culture, of belief, we don't truly believe in the ideals of freedom. We're still tied into another system of control on a subconscious, conscious level, where we feel that we have to have things this concrete and solid. It's a declaration that we don't have faith in ourselves through the life experience to reach the next level. It's connecting, it's that same connection to the fallacy that left to our own devices, there would be anarchy and hell on earth. And this is what the New World Order and their puppets are screaming to us through the mainstream media bullhorns of the world, that there would be anarchy and cannibalism and total chaos unless they have their certain perfect governmental structure in place. And they're engaging in depopulation methods, no matter how horrendous they are. And it's amazing how many people I meet that think they're on the conscious level, that applaud China's one-child policy and what it's brought to that country, despite the fact there's going to be 20 to 30 million more men than women by 2020 in China. More males than women. That's a major, that's majorly out of balance with nature. And of course, it's not very moral. It's sexist. We can go on and on and on. And so, if we're truly vibrating in love and compassion, we would never want to hold up a system like that that's that oppressive. And again, we're talking about China that holds our U.S. Treasury bonds. We're talking about China that Bill Clinton gave the ports to in 1997. We're talking about China that Obama gave the B-2 stealth bomber blueprints for debt relief that came out about 9 months ago to a year. We're talking about China, who had their flag raised in D.C. in the fall of 2009 on the South Lawn. And so when you see something like this coming, it's important to talk about it. And when I talk about China and these things that are coming to our continent, these things that are likely staged by design, it's only there to warn you and hopefully get us to redirect our own lives in the right way. Because if you're hoping for the economy to get better, you've got another thing coming. If you're hoping for the jobs to get better, you got another thing coming. And the reality is they would like to see another war come that's going to pool the unemployed people together for this great conflict. And of course, it's going to seem really important at the time. A lot of nations will be wrapped up in their nationalistic jargon between the United States and China because everything that has been going on the last year to 2 years is like reading a movie script. There's no necessary war between China and the United States. It's not necessary because the two countries are interlocked in so many different ways, militarily and economically through trade. So if there is something about to arise between these two superstates, we have to ask ourselves, what is the relationship historically between China and the Western powers? Take it back to the British Opium Wars between the British and China, and how that created an early destabilization effect of the continent by occupying those ports after the war, at least 5 of them, and then fast forward to what was taking place between Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. And we continue to see China being groomed for what it's become today, looking at the secret meetings between Kissinger and Nixon in 1974 and Mao Zedong. Just again, decade after decade, more aid, more technological infrastructure, IBM working closely with China, and of course all of our computers manufactured by China. And so what we're experiencing today is a very strange reality. For years we lived in a country that was the superstate, the supernation in the post-World War II era. But of course, today, there's so much disinformation out there that people are viewing the discussion as a U.S. versus China situation instead of knowing about the interlocking relationship and asking the question, why would China be groomed to be at the point that it is today? So looking at the surveillance society, that's another way you can see the global hand in all of this. The DNA server in the sky, which multiple superstates share, including Russia and the UK and Australia. Access to our DNA codes, access to our DNA sequences. For what purpose, we ask? And then, of course, we come back to the larger questions. With everything that we've learned about the ancient past, about the gods that allegedly made man in their image, and the flood, and all of these legends, and then, of course, all of this interest around 2012, could these be the times in our lifetime? Could this be a time where we're going to see great transformation on the earth in a number of different ways, looking at the modification of life on Earth today through stem cell research and the mixing of different genes? It's as if the gods aren't really even gone. It's as if they have representatives here on Earth that look like us, that are pushing us in this new direction, creation of the new man. Tom Horn was on the show last year, and he talked about the modification of human life, the creation of chimeras, and it parallels a lot of things that happened in the past when we look at mythology. And so the question is, what is going on with man today? And what is our species going to be physically looking like in the next century in this type of a new world order system that we're living in? And so what we're hoping to see and determine in the next couple of years is a closer idea of what the outcome is going to be, because a lot of it is determined on, I think, how to respond to these challenges, where the species goes from here on out. And it sounds very metaphysical to a lot of people, but you're looking at a lot of dynamic factors here that can be shifted when people are conscious and they take power into their own hands. When you look at red light cameras and the resistance to that, we can see victories in the last year towards those systems of control because people have voiced their opinion and people have rallied to the point where they've been able to influence their own city council to no longer participate with the corporations that are literally robbing us at gunpoint almost through color of law to get their money. But you also have massive opposition to other things as well where you see success. More people growing foods, more people talking about Monsanto and genetically modified food. And we see other levels of expanded consciousness, and then you see other areas where it seems completely dead and dense and void of consciousness, like the anti-war movement in Portland. It seems completely dead, without a pulse, ever since this new president was elected, through the fraud and lies that were very persuasive to many people in this country. A lot of people have no longer been active in the area of trying to get the troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan. But hopefully some people are starting to wake up as they see the deceptions going on with the current administration. So, I mean, I said a mouthful there, but there's so many different levels of looking at this and where we're moving forward and where we're falling back. To end this part of the conversation before we go to that phone call is I'm only responsible for my own actions and what I do on Earth while I'm here. And so I know there's a lot of us here that know about these things, that are active in different ways as speakers, and some people are working in the community, helping people get off the grid. Some people are involved in growing gardens. Some people are raising consciousness in their own way. But by doing our own part and believing in our own power, we are affecting our reality, for better or for worse. And the reality is a lot of people are affecting their reality every day negatively. They're destroying things. Every time you say something positive, sometimes when I say something positive, we're trying to lean someone in the direction of looking at free energy, and I got this response the other day, you'll get a negative reaction. Oh, we can't do that. We can't generate enough power for X, Y, and Z. And no matter what I was saying in terms of this direction and all the discoveries being made in terms of consciousness and people in the city that are looking at things like free energy, it was as if I was talking to someone with a computer system in their head that was responding with everything negative that they could say to shut down the conversation in the area of free energy. And so, you're looking at a world where we have to do what's right and listen to ourselves and listen to that inner guidance within, and that means closing the doors to all those other voices at us that are telling us to sit down and shut up, just accept things the way that they are. It's just a new world order. There's FEMA camps everywhere. You're not going to be able to change anything. Then, of course, there's the other denial out there that says these things aren't going on. There is no